On the Raiders rundown, we take a look at various insiders implying that there is a Raiders player milking an injury and not playing for whatever reason. And when you look at the Raiders roster right now, there are a couple of players who you can assume this is about. Plus, Antonio Brown seems to be obsessed with Derek Carr as he deals with legal problems. Also, Mack Hollins is having a career year and may be a lot better than we realize. If you want more Raiders content from me, scroll down and click subscribe so you do not miss the next video. So we talked about this yesterday, the fact that Lincoln Kennedy went out of his way to say that he does not expect Darren Waller to be back this year, and he expects Foster Moreau to actually start the remainder of the season for the Raiders at the tight end position. And this is a big deal because Lincoln Kennedy works for the Raiders, works for Raider Nation Radio, so he does have some credibility when he's talking about this team. And just a little over 2 weeks ago, Vincent Bosnier of the Las Vegas Review-Journal said there's some growing frustration behind Darren Waller's absence. In this article, he says sources have indicated that frustration is growing among the club regarding the star tight end Darren Waller and his absence with that hamstring issue. However, he mainly tried to imply that Derek Carr's comments in the press conference about needing more players who are deeply committed to the team, Derek Carr doing all these impassioned speeches, seeming frustrated, he kind of implied this was about Derek Carr, but then Derek Carr debunked this.
No. When it comes to injuries, I've been through injuries, and there's some that you can play through and there's some that you can't do anything about. I was not talking about anybody like that, for sure.
And then shortly after, Adam Hill, the Las Vegas Review-Journal, was writing that Waller says him and Derek Carr cleared the air, making sure the comments that Derek Carr made in the press conference were not about Darren Waller. So the tight end was texted this story implying that the Raiders are frustrated with Darren Waller, implying that Derek Carr's comments might be about Darren Waller, but he says he talked to Derek Carr, discussed it with Derek Carr. Carr debunked it, said it wasn't about Waller. And Waller said, hey, we know each other, we've been together for 4 years, and these type of rumors and things don't affect our relationship. And Waller expressed sympathy towards fans who are frustrated. Says when it comes down to a season when you're not meeting expectations, and a dude has signed a shiny new contract, it's frustrating. People could throw me under the bus. It is what it is and how it's going to be. I know how it goes, and I'm tough enough to handle it. And it all seemed to have been swept under the rug, but now things have taken a sudden turn. And you have JT the Brick, who works for the Raiders, who interviews Josh McDaniels on a weekly basis on the Raiders official website, also has a show on Raider Nation Radio. He's making some interesting comments on his show, and this is Raider B reporting on this on JT the Brick show on Raider Nation Radio. He talked about how the team is playing hard and that there is something special about it, and also says there are guys who are not playing for whatever reason, wink wink, and can't get on the field, wink wink, and the rest of the guys are like, if you can't get on the field, we're gonna win the game. We can't wait for you to get out of the tub. We can't wait for you and your private masseuse to get you ready. We've got a game tonight and we've got to play. So over 2 weeks ago, rumors about Carr's comments being about Darren Waller eventually debunked by Darren Waller by Derek Carr. But then yesterday, Lincoln Kennedy saying to start Foster Moreau on your fantasy team because he doesn't expect Waller back, even when he is eligible to return, which will happen next week before the Thursday night football game against the Los Angeles Rams. And then you have yesterday, JT the Brick, the guy who's well connected and always reminds you that he's well connected and he talks to the players, talks to the coaches, he's actually inside the building. This guy is saying that there is a player out there milking an injury and saying for whatever reason they can't get back onto the field, and the players are saying, all right, whatever, we're going to do this without you. And when you look at all these things lining up, it seems like it could possibly be about Darren Waller. You wouldn't think it's about Hunter Renfrow because Hunter Renfrow does not have all these side projects. He's not also a rapper. He's not also a podcaster. He's not also dating somebody who appears to be a successful basketball player with a large social media influence. And today, Raiders Beat is also reporting that on Raider Nation Radio on the Unnecessary Roughness podcast, there was a doctor, Dr. Chow, who says that some of the injuries do not actually make sense. He doesn't want to speculate, but he says with regards to Darren Waller's injury, it doesn't all add up. I don't want to speculate. I think we will all see that it doesn't add up completely, but there's usually an explanation, and I think ultimately it will come out. And this is on the Raiders radio station. That is what is so crazy about this. You also have fantasy football doctor Jesse Morris saying that he agrees with Dr. Chow on Raider Nation Radio. Something with Raider Nation Darren Waller's injury doesn't add up. There's something the team isn't telling us, and maybe the beat reporters can ask the coach to elaborate. Now, I'm going to go ahead and believe Derek Carr that his comments were not about Darren Waller, especially that they went out in the media and openly squashed it. Or maybe they were trying to do that because they realized that maybe Derek made a mistake by being too frustrated in some of these press conferences. But what we do know right now is that there is a coordinated effort with the official Raiders media outlets, JT the Brick, Lincoln Kennedy, Raider Nation Radio. These people are all putting messages out there that there's something going on with Darren Waller, that there's a player out there milking an injury who doesn't seem like they want to play, and that you should start Foster Moreau on your fantasy team, because even though Darren Waller is eligible to return this season, don't expect him back. And if these guys are the guys who have access to the coaches, who are interviewing the coaches on the weekly basis, clearly there's a message that the coaches and the team want to spread to the public about Darren Waller. You never hear these guys, Lincoln Kennedy and JT the Brick, heavily criticize Dave Ziegler and Josh McDaniels. They're not allowed to because they're kind of their boss. So I don't know, Raider Nation, you let me know in the comments. Are they sending messages about Darren Waller and his future with the Raiders via Raider Nation Radio? All I know is that Darren Waller was at one point the #1 and #2 tight end in the NFL 2019-2020. And when he is healthy, he is still a top 5 tight end in the NFL today. And all I want is for him to get on the football field with the Raiders. And who knows, what if he is actually injured and we just got to wait till next year to see it? So I hope he gets back on the football field, but it does seem like he's interested in other things, rapping, having a podcast. We know he did some training to perhaps prepare himself for broadcasting. And so who knows if the plan all along was to get some guarantees for this year and chill on IR and then eventually retire. But only time will tell. There still is a possibility that this is a serious injury. Perhaps his personal doctor thinks that he should not rush himself back. And so hopefully Darren Waller is just being cautious and will eventually get back on the football field for the Raiders. And we know Antonio Brown had that weird moment where he bet $10,000 on Derek Carr, and he had this weird picture of Derek Carr looking overweight, that he would beat the Broncos. And apparently Antonio Brown's made some money, hit Derek Carr retweeting AB retweeting Derek Carr. Weird stuff considering the fact that there's probably some tension due to Antonio Brown's embarrassing fallout with the Oakland Raiders in 2019. But now Antonio Brown is continuing to talk about the Raiders on his Snapchat just yesterday, posting a picture of him and Derek Carr at training camp with the Raiders in 2019. Kind of weird. Makes you think, is this guy trying to get back on the Raiders? We know that he has some experience with Josh McDaniels since he joined the Patriots after being released by the Raiders in 2019. But AB may have some bigger problems than a fantasy that he would eventually join the Las Vegas Raiders, because there's an arrest issue issued for Antonio Brown for misdemeanor domestic violence. This just came out today. There's a misdemeanor battery charge. So even if this guy tried to get back in the NFL, even if he said, man, Raiders, give me a shot, I'll play for so cheap for 1 year, I think AB's in some trouble right now and might have to convince genius Josh McDaniels to hire him next year. But a receiver who is doing well with the Raiders this year is none other than Mack Hollins, who is actually having a career year with the Raiders in 2022. He currently has 531 yards, and that is actually double any amount of yardage he's had in his entire career prior to this season with Josh McDaniels and the Raiders. And what's interesting is the past 3 years he's played in the AFC East with the Dolphins, so Josh McDaniels has been able to get a look at this guy for 2 games every single year. And 531 yards is actually pretty significant. He has more yards than a lot of star players in the NFL. He's tied with the same yards as Hollywood Brown, more yards than Mike Williams of the Chargers, more receiving yards than Deebo Samuel, but we know he runs the ball a lot, more receiving yards than Darnell Mooney of the Bears, Deontay Johnson of the Steelers, and also has more yards this year than Denver Broncos former first-round pick Jerry Jeudy. So it's great to see a veteran have a career year with the Raiders, and hopefully he can turn this into a second contract with the Las Vegas Raiders. Former Raiders Jonathan Abram is going to try to excel with his second stint with a third team. He was waived from the Packers as they're trying to go young, and now has been picked up by the Seattle Seahawks, who just dropped an L to the Las Vegas Raiders last week. We'll see how Jonathan Abram does in the NFC West, but what's really scary is the fact that the Kansas City Chiefs have picked up from the Falcons, got him on the practice squad now, Bryan Edwards, former third-round pick receiver with the Raiders. I just hope and hope and hope this guy balls out with some other team, not the Chiefs. Please don't let it be the Chiefs. Either way, we're looking forward to this upcoming AFC West matchup against the Chargers. Make sure you join me live this Sunday during the game. Turn on notifications so you do not miss when I'm going live. My name is WiFiWillie. Peace out, and I hope you have a good one.